And today's book review, Coaching Better Every Season. This is definitely a book for school athlete coaches doing typical intramural type after-school sports programs. But give it a read. You're going to be pretty surprised at how well it can adapt to your needs. He does split this into 4 different groupings. Some of them will make more sense for you and some of them won't, as a martial arts instructor who's probably running an all-season program. You don't have an on-season, off-season the way that most school sports do. So for him, he starts the preseason, and here's where you envision what your program is going to look like. And he gets pretty deep into the first part where you define your values, and a little different on the setting targets than we might usually encompass. But let's take a look at one of the values propositions here. Thought this was pretty good. He says that coaches spoke frequently about efforts to create optimal learning environments in which athletes, for us it'd be our students, felt confident and comfortable with risking failure. Now that is kind of a key phrase that stands right out and in line with ecological dynamics and taking chances and learning from doing things incorrectly, almost on purpose sometimes. Give that a shot and see how it works in your school. I bet you'll be pleasantly surprised. Now, I don't like to read from a slide, but this was so important to me that we're going to do it. He's looked at a whole bunch of coaches and found the 6 common traits of the all-time best coaches. Included a genuine care for players, again, students, martial arts students, genuine care for players and consideration of their individual needs. That individuality is going to come up a few times here. Creating team togetherness and working coach-athlete relationships. So if you think of team togetherness, looking at how your students interact with each other as a critical feature of how they're going to do in their progress in martial arts. And then working coach-athlete relationships, of course, for you, it's going to be student and instructor relationships, but otherwise it's very much the same thing. Setting clear and defined roles for every player on the team. Every player. Now, you may run a small school, 10, 20 people. You may run a large school, 100, 200 even people or more. Think about how you would set up goals with each and every one of those folks. Some will be simple, some will be more difficult, but they'll all be appreciative of it and stick around and train better and stay longer. Deep passion and drive for winning. Deep passion and drive, if you're here, if you're reading this, if you're watching this, if you're thinking about this, if you're reading this book, you already have this. I'm not worried about you there. You got that. Adoption of a leadership approach that fits your personality and values. This is about the coach. This is not about the students. This is about how you are going to be genuine with how you lead class, how you lead your curriculum, how you lead each drill, each practice session. And then a perspective on their sport as just a game and not the sole purpose in their life. And I know some of you are going to find some heartache on this one. You know, Manaka Sensei from the Jinenkan once told me that he thought it was very important that people consider themselves a human, a person who does something in life, and not as a martial artist as their main thing. I thought that was a big deal, that someone who's running a martial arts organization would suggest that maybe a martial arts practice is not the most important thing in your life. Give this one some thought and see what you come up with. I'd be very curious to hear what you think. Please comment below. Now, after the preseason, of course, you have the in-season, and for us, that's probably all the time. Here we're going to enact, and that means we're developing skills, we're optimizing learning. This is what Open Budo is all about. If you're checking out any of our other courses, reading any of our other programs, you're going to see a lot of in-depth enactment of how to get people better. Now, that's going to include lesson planning, is what we would call designing effective practices. And for us, competition prep and sidelines coaching, and for you, is probably the one that doesn't match very much. You're probably not signing up your students if you're in Japanese traditional martial arts. You're probably not signing them up for too many competitions. And if you're doing sidelines coaching in a street fight of some kind where they're defending themselves, that raises a whole host of issues that I don't think we even need to discuss here. But I did find this very interesting. The 3 C's of effective communication for coaches. He calls them clarity, consistency, and commonplace. Clarity is pretty obvious. Consistency is where you get to start using a specific set of jargons or terminologies that make an in-group, out-group for your students. And commonplace. This is where you litter your lessons with the same terminology. They become so common that the parents of your young students know them. The students all recognize them, even if they're in a foreign language, for us, probably Japanese. Use them clearly, use them consistently, and make them commonplace. Use them often. Now, this is a snapshot of my personal copy of the book here. And here he has a post-practice coach reflection sheet. This is for you. I personally thought it was valuable to use an approach like this. I don't use his exact model anymore, but rather than use it only as a post-practice checklist for myself to see how I did teaching a class, I now also use this proactively to help design a class, knowing that these are the questions I'd want to ask myself to see if the class went well. And of course, end of season is something that you're going to have to schedule for yourself because you don't have an end of season most likely. Here is where you would evaluate. And in building an evaluation system, he suggests 4 core values, and I thought these were pretty hot. First, participation. See if you can make your program accessible and inclusive. Not everybody does, and boy, these days it matters a lot. There's a lot of people who need access to this stuff. Get them in there. Retaining. Do you inspire participants to continue their training? Let's say they go off to college. If they're a young person, do they want to come back and train? Do they train when they're back from school in the off seasons for their academics? If they move somewhere, would they look for another dojo? Yours was so exciting that they wanted to find somewhere else to train. That's how you know you're doing a good job. Do you engage? Do you have programs that athletes, again, for us students, that they enjoy and that result in skill development? Can't just be fun. And really, if it's just skill development, no enjoyment, you're not going to stick around. They're not going to be retained. They're not going to continue. So if you can get the one, you got the other. And change the terminology and it's going to apply to you. They say to compete by develop consistently competitive programs and student athletes. Yeah, I know you're probably thinking what I thought when I first read that is, we don't go to competitions. We're not really doing that sort of thing. But is your program, is your dojo, is your set of lessons so competitively compelling compared to other people in the area that they're going to come to you? And are your students, are your athletes, in this case, learning the skills they need to be competitive in life? Are they better leaders? Are they better thinkers? Are they more fit? Are they more outgoing? Can they use these skills to defend themselves if they need to? Could they pass this on accurately to someone else in the future? That's some of the values that you'll know make them competitive within our realm of martial arts. Again, this is one from my personal copy of the book with a couple of my scribbles in there on the margin. Apologies for that. This is for them, the athletes, in our case, the students, as a questionnaire, asking them, how did we do? What worked for you? Were we somebody that they want to look up to and come back to? Did we, and in some of my marginalia notes, I see that he does it in the other order, basically asking about Shingi Tai, but asking body questions, asking skill questions, asking mindset questions. And this he goes on for a few pages worth. So this is what, if you picked up this book just for this, you'd be money well spent. And then in the off season, we're looking at enhancement, and you don't have an off season unless you schedule it. But your off season, you're going to have to schedule. Now here, you enhance your life in general, and you enhance your participation as an instructor of classical martial arts. And here he suggests you close your performance gaps by using journaling, using journals for you, and then collaborate. And by collaboration, he is, of course, at a school program looking at collaborating with the other coaches around, parents of those students who are coming to him as athletes. That you're going to have parents if you have young people in your program. You're going to have their spouses if you're dealing with adults only. You're going to have other instructors in your area of expertise, if nothing else. And I hope you'll consider Open Budo as a source of other collaboration efforts as well. Get in touch with us. We'd love to get in touch with you. Hopefully we'll see you at some in-person programs too. An example for one of his journals that I found pretty good, you can see in one of the marginalia notes there, I wasn't sure if I wanted to make it about Thai, about body, or about the gi, about skills there, so I blended that first one. But his self-assessment sheet here is looking at skills and conditioning and character development. Are the students motivated? Are they in good academic standing? Now, that won't necessarily apply to you if you don't teach children or high school students. But you could apply that to looking at your adult students in their workplace. Are they getting better? Are they better leaders? Are they learning the kind of skills that bring their lives better improvements? That's the book review for Coaching Better Every Season. I hope you'll pick it up. There'll be a link to pick it up below. Take a look. Grab it. Grab one for yourself. Heck, grab one for your friends.